When I reviewed the Nikon Z9 a while ago, I said that it is a fantastic camera for filmmaking, but it's hard for me to recommend purchasing unless you have the budget to buy two of them, because Nikon does not have a cheaper camera that offers similar video capabilities that you could use as a B or C cam. I am so glad to tell you though that has changed, because this is the brand new Nikon Z8, and in this video I will be reviewing this camera from the perspective of a wedding filmmaker and telling you if it's a good purchase if you're looking for a camera for filming weddings or documentaries, or really anything else for that matter. And because I respect your time, I'm going to spoil the conclusion of this review early and tell you that the Z8 gives you essentially all of the features of the Z9, but in a more compact body and with a more compact price. To be clear, you could use this camera as a B or C camera for the Z9, but I don't think you necessarily need to, because the Z8 is easily good enough to be your next A camera. Anyways, before we jump into the review, for the sake of ethics, I want you to know this video is not paid or sponsored by Nikon, but they did give me access to this camera early to test it out, and it will be going back to them in a couple days. Also, they wanted me to tell you that this is a pre-production version of the Z8 with pre-production firmware, and all of this footage that you see was filmed with this pre-production camera, meaning that the footage and experience that you have may be slightly different with the full production model. Now, let's talk about this camera. Starting off, whenever I reviewed the Z9, I said one of the first things you'll notice about that camera is the size, because it was basically like Nikon said, do mirrorless cameras actually have to be smaller? I don't know why I'm giving Nikon that accent, but the point is that the Z9 felt like it was about the size of a DSLR. It was big, it was heavy, it was chunky enough that you could use it as a weapon to hit someone over the head if you were getting mugged. But regardless, I feel like Nikon realized that they needed to make something easier to hold for extended periods. And so if you are a wedding filmmaker like me that will be holding your camera for 8, 10, or 12 or more hours on a wedding day, having a camera that will not completely destroy your back and biceps is always a good thing. Enter the Z8, which I am so pleased to tell you is dramatically lighter and smaller than the Z9. This camera feels much closer in size to my A7S III that is my daily driver for filming weddings, and I must say that the Z8 is quite comfortable to hold, and the ergonomics of this camera just feel great. Like the Z9, the Z8 has the exact same screen on the back, which unfortunately is not a flip-around screen, but it does articulate up and down as well as side to side, which is great for vertical video shooting. Ports-wise, I'm pleased to tell you that the Z8 has a full-size HDMI port, as well as mic jacks and headphone jacks, and most interestingly, it has two USB-C ports right next to each other, but they don't do the same thing. One is for data transfer and the other is for charging, and I think it's great that you can now do both at the same time with this camera. Talking media and memory cards here for a second, this is where things get more interesting with this camera, because unlike the Z9, which includes dual CF Express Type B card slots, the Z8 has one CF Express Type B card slot and one SD card slot. I think that this is a good compromise, because if you already have a Z9 or you already own CF Express Type B cards, they will work interchangeably between these two cameras. But if you're just starting your kit and you're wanting to invest in significantly more affordable SD cards instead of CF Express Type B cards, you also have the option to do that as well. Spoiler, though, only by using CF Express Type B cards will you be able to record in the maximum amount of frame rates and bit rates that this camera supports. And with SD cards, you are going to be limited to recording in only up to 4K and ProRes 422 HQ, which honestly sounds really good, but that said, if you want to unleash the full power of the Z8 and record raw video in ProRes RAW or in RAW internally, you'll need to use CF Express. I will also give you one caveat here though, and remind you that this is a pre-production camera with pre-production firmware, so there is like a 1% chance that the full camera could be different in regards to the bit rates that are supported with SD cards. But for raw video, considering the high bit rates required, I'm very doubtful that Nikon would get that working on an SD card. Moving on, there is one other general con that I need to mention when it comes to these dual card slots, and this is also a con that Nikon had with the Z9, and that is that while the Z8 has dual memory card slots, the camera is perplexingly incapable of recording video to both slots at the same time. It's weird. You can take photos with this camera and it will save the photos to both memory card slots, but if you try to record video, you're going to be limited to recording to one card slot at a time. I've asked Nikon about this and I don't have a clear reason why, but if I was to guess, it might have to be with either Nikon not wanting to have the camera be too confusing, where it would only be capable of dual recording in 4K and not in RAW, and so you got to make sure your settings are right between all the memory cards, or it could be because Nikon possibly didn't want the camera to overheat. If it was recording to dual cards, that could make it hotter. I'm not sure. Regardless, as a wedding filmmaker, I filmed with the Sony a7S II for many years, and that camera only had one SD card slot, and I never had it fail on a wedding day, so I don't think that it is absolutely mission critical that you get a camera that can record video to dual memory card slots, but considering that the competition from the likes of Sony and Panasonic both let you record to dual memory card slots while recording video, it's a bummer that Nikon has not enabled this on the Z8. Here's hoping they fix it in a firmware update. Anyways, speaking of video formats and capabilities, this is where the lines really start to blur between the Z8 and the Z9, and it's also where this camera really starts to shine from a video standpoint. In short, Nikon made an incredible image sensor with the Z9, capable of recording 8K video at up to 60 frames per second in RAW. It's super impressive. What's more impressive, though, is that Nikon said, hey, this Z9 sensor is great, let's put it in the Z8 and make it cheaper. Yes, really. The Z8 has essentially the same sensor as the Z9, meaning that it is also capable of recording in up to 8K at 60 frames per second in RAW, plus it also comes with all the other bells and whistles the Z9 includes as well. You not only get 8K at up to 60 FPS, you also get 4K at up to 120 frames per second, and you get the option to record in ProRes RAW at up to 4K 60. You also get the in-log picture profile with great dynamic range that works perfectly with my color presets, who is Matt Lutz, which I will link to down in the video description. You also get great IBIS performance for smooth handheld shots, and as a weird quirk from the Z9, that camera was only capable of recording for 2 hours and 5 minutes before you had to stop recording and start it again. It's the same with the Z8. I'm not sure why that is, but 2 hour and 5 minute recording time limit, and then just hit record again? You also get great autofocus with AI that focuses on people and faces as well as animals, and now airplanes? They added airplanes to this. If you film airplanes, you're in luck. Of course, there's also great manual focus too with the 50mm, 85mm, and 24 to 70mm lenses that I tested with this camera. As you can see, there's a lot of great features that you'll recognize from the Z9. Just like the Z9, you also get the ability to change the manual focus ring rotation direction in the software as long as the lens supports it, which is great if you're coming from basically any other camera brand that isn't Nikon. Also, just like the Z9, keep in mind that this is a very high resolution sensor, so if you are filming in 8K, you can expect to get some rolling shutter, especially if you're shaking the camera back and forth rapidly, so I want you to be aware of that. For me personally, with my wedding films, I usually am going for smoother, grander shots, and I'm not usually going for a ton of shake, so I didn't experience any rolling shutter. Anyways, if you watch my Z9 review, one of the things that I drew attention to was the fact that the Z9 has the ability to record internal compressed RAW video like ProRes RAW, and them doing that has drawn the attention of Red, the camera company, and they've chosen to sue Nikon because they have a patent on internal compressed RAW recording. And as we talked about earlier, the Z8 supports the same compressed internal RAW recording as the Z9, but there has recently been a huge update in this lawsuit, and it has massive ramifications for not only the Z8 and Z9, but also any future cameras that Nikon's going to make, as well as potentially future cameras from other camera manufacturers as well. In short, keeping in mind that I am not a lawyer, but to sum things up to the best of my understanding, Red's lawsuit against Nikon has been dismissed, meaning that Nikon can continue to include compressed RAW recording in the Z8 and Z9 as well as their future cameras, but Red still retains their compressed RAW recording patents, meaning that Nikon may have made a deal with them. Regardless, this is a deal that potentially other camera manufacturers could make as well, and it is very exciting. Back to Nikon and its RAW recording now. Like the Z9 though, I will warn you that the file sizes that the Z8 is capable of recording, especially in 8K RAW, are quite beefy, so if you are planning on recording these highest frame rates and resolutions that the camera is capable of using, you can expect to blaze through your memory cards pretty fast, and you're going to want a lot of them. Just like the Z9, I believe with a 640 gigabyte memory card, I got 15 minutes of recording time in 8K 60. Fills up fast. Speaking of blazing through memory cards, though, let's talk about another blaze, overheating when it comes to this camera. One pro of the Z9 being such a large camera is that whenever I used it, I never experienced overheating, even when I was recording in 8K resolution. My thinking is that one of the reasons that it was not overheating was the size of that camera, which really helped with the heat dissipation. And the other thing was the fact that I was recording with the Z9 in the middle of December, which if you're up north, that'd be very cold, like snow weather. But here in Texas, we still have it sometimes hit 80 degrees Fahrenheit, so it wasn't super cold, but it also wasn't really oppressive Texas summer heat that would really stress a camera either. Regardless, as we talked about earlier, the Z8 is definitely a decrease in size from the Z9, which did set off some alarm bells in my head, because the simple physics of Nikon cramming the same sensor into a smaller camera body could result in greater heat generation. Unfortunately, I have not had a chance to test overheating super in depth with this camera where I leave it out in the sun for an hour, mostly because I only have this camera for a few days and it's spring in Texas, which means that it rains significantly more often, and it has been rainy and cloudy all week. But here's the good news. While it has not been in direct sunlight, I have tested this camera extensively, recording a ton of clips with it back-to-back in 70-degree weather, and in all of that testing, even when recording in 8K, the Z8 has not shown any signs of overheating. So I think that if you are someone that films primarily indoors with talking head interviews or conferences, etc., you're probably not going to need to worry about overheating. But if you're filming outdoors in the blazing sun, I would probably recommend renting this camera beforehand and seeing how it handles heat for you. Next, let's talk battery life. And whereas the Z9 had a truly massive battery pack because it essentially had a built-in battery grip, with the Z8 being much smaller, it actually uses the same battery as the Nikon Z6 and Z7. In my experience, this is a great battery and it had plenty of stamina even when recording in higher frame rates, resolutions, and in RAW. I would expect to go through probably 3 to 4 batteries on a wedding day, and I don't think that you'll have any complaints about the battery life of this camera. As far as low light performance of the Z8 goes, keep in mind that this camera has essentially the same sensor as the Z9, meaning that I found that the image looks great up to about ISO 12,800 or so, and after that it started to get significantly noisier. But even with that extra noise, I feel like you could crank the ISO higher if you were filming in, say, a very dark wedding reception. Now, let's talk about the price of the Z8, because this is where things get really interesting in regards to the Z9, and this is where I feel like the Z8 becomes really compelling. See, in my review for the Z9, I said that what that camera was lacking was an ecosystem of other cameras to pair it with. If you wanted a camera capable of recording amazing 8K internal RAW video, you could buy the Z9 and use that as an A camera, but if you wanted a B or C camera that you only used for, say, filming wedding ceremonies, for example, there wasn't a cheaper option. Your only choice was to buy another Z9 if you wanted the video quality to match between your two cameras. This made building out a kit super expensive and is the main reason why it was harder for me to recommend the Z9. Thankfully, it really feels like Nikon was aware of this, because with the Z8, they have filled that gap in their product line perfectly. In essence, you are getting essentially the same video quality as the Z9, but now, instead of costing the rather eye-watering price of $5,500 that you would spend at the time of making this video for the Z9, Nikon has told me that the Z8 is going to be priced at approximately $4,000, which is fantastic and very competitive. So the Z8 is looking like an incredibly compelling B or C camera to pair with the Z9. But what's even crazier is that the Z8 is so good that you can really think of it as an A camera and save some money. For $4,000, you're getting an incredible camera in the Z8 that's easily capable of filming a wedding day, and building out a kit of multiple cameras is going to be even more affordable than trying to add a Z9 into the equation. Not to mention that the Z8 is also dramatically smaller and lighter than the Z9, which is going to make holding it all day on the wedding day even easier as well. So if you are looking for a super capable camera system for wedding filmmaking, documentary filmmaking, or pretty much anything else for that matter, I highly recommend the Z8, and I'm really glad to see Nikon being so competitive. Speaking of things that I highly recommend, by the way, I know I mentioned it earlier, but if you are filming in a log picture profile like N-Log with Nikon or S-Log3 on Sony, I highly recommend checking out my color presets, Who is Matt Lutz. They're going to help you get amazing colors in your footage in one click, and I will link to them down below. Also down below, I'm going to link to my YouTube tips for wedding filmmakers guide. If you happen to be a wedding filmmaker like me, which considering this is a review of the camera for wedding filmmakers, so I assume you might be, I put together a free guide that's going to show you the exact steps that you can take to get more views, likes, and bookings from YouTube. This guide is completely free and you can download it at the link down below. Oh, and also really quick, if you happen to deal with people coming up to you while you're filming, asking you to take their picture and you're like, no, I'm filming, it's a video, it's not photo. Well, I made a shirt to help you out with that. It's video. Yeah, you can buy this shirt and you can point to it and then people know, oh, it's video. Okay. Yeah, if you want this shirt, really, you can buy it. It's linked down in the video description. Cool. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye.